everyone. We're back. Hey, Jenny. I'm going to start
Hello.
intros.
Good morning.
So, are you, okay. Hey.
I'm not sideways anymore.
Good morning. All right. We're back. Hi, everyone. We're in week 2 of our Serendipity Sew Along. For those of you who weren't with us last week, welcome. And for those of you who are coming back, welcome back. I'm Nellie, the marketing director for Timeless Treasures. And I am so excited to share part 2. I hope you were all sewing away in part 1. And Jenny and Tony did a great job last week of showing us how to get started. Before we get started in part 2, just a little bit more housekeeping stuff. If you're looking for the pattern, it's posted on our Facebook page. I don't know if you could see it. Here are the links. And part 2 of the pattern's live. You can still get part 1 from last week. You can still see our wonderful video from last week as well. It was our first time, so give us some, credit for trying something new. Our final live video will be not next Tuesday, but the following Friday, April 24th at 11. And that's when we'll be giving you more details about the giveaway and how you can get some fine, fabulous fabric products from our friends at Wing and a Prayer. And also our sister company, Dear Stella, is also participating in the Sew Along. So make sure you hop on their Instagram. It's Dear Stella Fab, one word. And our director, Jamie, had put together a great modern and whimsical take on this quilt. So, you could do it any way you like. That's the beauty of this pattern. It's very flexible and beginner friendly and just lets your creativity run with you. Again, we'd love to see your work in progress. So don't forget to tag Serendipity Sew Along, hashtag Serendipity Sew Along, one word, so we can see your progress. And don't be shy. We're here to answer any questions you have, high fives, wave, and take advantage of this opportunity while we're at home and have plenty of time to meditate on our sewing and getting to know each other. So I'm going to let Tony and Jenny take it away, and I will be in the back here answering any questions you might have or comments on the feed. All right, ready, ladies?
Hi, Nellie. Good morning. Hey, I talked to Jamie from Dear Stella, the director of Dear Stella, and she has pulled a wonderful collection together for Dear Stella, and so we're going to be excited to show that along with the way. Sorry, I had to run and get our step stool. And if y'all hear an interruption, it's my just 3-year-old grandson that had to come to Nana's lake house because he couldn't be quarantined at his house any longer. So anyway, we are ready to go. I'm going to hold the camera today, and then Jen and I are both going to talk, so we hope it'll go a little smoother than before. Do we want to just review what we did last week?
I'll let you.
Okay, so we're going to flip this around.
Okay.
And so what we did last week, you want to get in place and I'll just review this.
Okay.
So what we did last week was our first page.
We had selected our 16 fat quarters, 8 lights and 8 darks. And this is from the Canyon and the Nature's Lodge collection, a combination of the 2 collections. Then we took each fat quarter, pressed them out, and then we cut an 18-inch square.
4 or 5 layers at a time.
Saved this piece for binding and then cut it diagonally, each one. Then what we did
was rotate the fabrics and sew them back together so you'll end up with a light dark large square.
Which is what we have here.
Yep.
And we had
here's one of
combinations,
the
16
that's Jenny's combinations. So then we have all combinations.
And then we cut each triangle or large half square triangle into these 2 6.5-inch strips and 1 3.5-inch strip. And that was the end of part 1.
Okay, so I know that's moving very quickly, but that was the review from last week. And so here now Jen is ready to, actually she's going to switch over to her colorway and show you the next steps.
So now we're going to take the vertical strips and we're going to make our horizontal cuts. So here's the part 2 pattern page to show you what we were doing. So I'm going to walk over here to the cutting table here.
So she's going to show you.
Which colors did Jen pick, Tony?
Jen chose, I'll show you here. Oh, don't move too fast. So Jen chose this great, the fantasy line. So here's actually the block that's finished, and then here's her little cuts. So she's going to show you, because she's been working ahead. So Jen, I'll let you get into place. Is that where you want to stand? Sorry, there's my step stool, ladies.
Okay, so this is our cuts from last time. Here's our 3.5 inch cut, a 6.5, and a 6.5. Okay. So now I'm going to take each one and I'm going to cut it into the pieces that we need for our blocks. So I'm going to start with this 6.5.
Nellie, is this ruler or camera position okay?
Yes, I can see Jen's cutting.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm taking this first piece here and I'm going to turn it horizontally so I am in the position to cut. And I'm going to grab my 6.5 inch square if you have one. This works fantastic. I'm going to take it and I'm going to align my 45-degree angle on the corners here in a line.
Up just so that they can see.
Oh, okay.
There's her angle and she's going to slide it right on this line.
Right on my seam. And then I'm going to make a 6.5 inch square cut here. Screwed off.
That's okay.
Okay. And then I'm going to take another one and I'm going to make another 6.5 inch cut here.
And this will be just a solid square for the block.
And then what I will have left is a 3.5 by 6.5 inch rectangle. And then I'm going to place those pieces in a pile up here. And then I'm going to take my next 6.5 inch cut and I'm going to turn it horizontally. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to make two 6.5 inch cuts. So here's my first one, which ends up in a solid square.
Okay. Hi, Baker Rogers. Hi, Mama
Sarah's
Mel's Palace.
Yeah, Sarah's thimbles.
Okay, and then I'm going to make this next 6.5 inch cut, and then I have a light rectangle again.
She aligned again her 45 to make this cut.
Okay, and then I'm going to place them in the pile up here.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take my last one, which was the 3.5 inch, and this time I'm going to have to make a 6.5 inch cut off of the solid end.
Whoops, there we go. Okay, 6.5.
Okay, so I'm going to make that. That one goes here, and then you can so I'm going to take this one that's 4.5 by 18, but you can make anything. And what we're going to need is I'm going to turn this over so I get in a proper position for cutting since I'm right-handed. And I'm going to align it, and I'm going to make a 9.5 inch cut.
Okay.
So here's my 9.5. And I'm just going, and there's going to be a little part that I'm going to discard here at the end.
Just a little 1/2 inch piece. Okay.
And then I'm going to place that back up there.
So now she's basically, sorry for the mess up pieces. She's basically just relayed her block, but it's all in cut pieces. Okay.
Okay.
So that is,
and that's just one layer, right, Tony? One layer.
Yeah, it really is. It's really easier to go ahead and take the time to cut through one layer because of needing those 45s lined up that way. It's just, you know, it just makes for a cleaner and thing, because if these angles right here are not, you know, at a good point, then your blocks aren't going to be as pretty in the end. And this is for newer sewers also. So if your points don't match perfectly, that's okay. It's going to quilt. It's a great quilt for just learning techniques and moving forward. So I'm going to spin around here so that Jen is able to show you here. So, oh, she's actually just going to move this right over here. So we have, so now we have switched over to the fantasy blocks, and you can see that Jen has done all of her cutting and all of her stacking up.
Okay, and so in order to get the block, we are going to start exchanging the different colors to make
the pattern.
Oh, okay. and it's going to basically be kind of scrappy at this point. So I'm going to start here, and I'm basically going to relay out this block one layer at a time. So I'm going to take this piece here, and I'm going to lay it here, and then I'm going to dig through my pile and get a different color for the next piece.
And at this point, don't worry totally about your colors, because eventually everything is going to meet back up with everything, Nellie. So there, she's put a purple. The key is always keeping your darks to one end. Oops, your darks to one end,
just like
and your lights to the other side. So here's her light square.
And I'm going to look through my
Looking through her
here,
pile.
see what colors I haven't really used yet.
There's a purple. So basically, you just want each block to be beautiful in itself. But don't worry that you have two purples. They're not the same purple. They're a different purple. And then she's going to dig through and find that pink and that one that's on your thumb. Yep.
Okay.
And there's her last piece. So there's her block ready now to sew together. Okay. So she's going to transfer that onto the big mama. Yeah, isn't that pretty?
Oh, question, Tony. Does it matter if you have directional fabrics?
You know, in this case, no, because eventually those blocks are going to turn back and forth. And so would they ever be able to make it? I don't think it would make a difference, Nellie, because the way the blocks turn in the quilt, that's a very good question, and we'll have to look a little further in it.
Yeah, I think that I think they would end up turning, especially in the end result.
And so at the end result, they're going to go every which way. And so don't worry about it at this point. Okay, I'm going to step down, and Jen is going to go to the sewing room here, and I'll get on the other step stool.
What's that gorgeous quilt you have back there?
Oh, well, we were going to try to get it replaced, and we realized we didn't have rock pockets. This is Canyon still, but next week we will have a new quilt up for you. This is the Canyon pattern, and I'll show you that up close while Jen's working. So the Canyon is going to start coming out later. We're just sending the kits to the shops here in the next couple of weeks. And then this last week, we started shipping the Nature's Lodge, and the combination of fabrics that I have are part of Nature's Lodge. I should have taken these out of the shiny cover. And then, of course, part of Nature's Lodge collection is the Flora and Fauna. And the quilt shops have just started to receive this. And the fun thing with Flora and Fauna is that we did this wonderful animal print. And there's my finger, that great animal print for the fauna block. And then we did this beautiful all over leaf print for the flora block. So this quilt you can do either as a flora or fauna. These are the wonderful Tonga batiks that we chose this collection for Timeless, of course. And it started shipping to the shops. And so look for it at your local quilt shop. They'll be posting online these projects. So, all right, Jen is all set up and ready to sew this block together. So any tips in sewing this together, Jen?
I just keep
Let's get her face. Oh, wait. Let's get her face in there. There we go.
So I'm going to start on this one. This row only has one seam. So I'm going to be working from left to right and top to bottom.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Jen, because a lot of times people want to know how to sew a block together. And so if you think about sewing a block together as you read a book, so you always work as you read a page, left to right, top to bottom, it's a good way to look. So then she looked at this and thought, okay, I'm going to have one seam here, two seams here, three seams here. So look at your block and see how it is. And then eventually you'll make your little sub sews. So that's what she's going to do first. And then she'll start sewing left to right, top to bottom. So in the end, she's going to sew the last piece that she'll sew on is the first piece that she's going to connect. So she's going to connect her 3.5-inch section, and then she'll set that aside, and then she'll start sewing her block together from there.
And when you lay these out, just make sure that it looks just like the triangle that you started with, where the dark parts are on the bottom right and the light parts are on the upper left.
Okay.
So I'm going to place these together, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, and then I'm going to start, I'm going to keep chain piecing here. So I'm going to start here and I'll sew these top 2 parts together.
And she'll clip off that one and put it back. So there's her first row.
And then I'm going to start and put these 2 together here.
And it just saves a lot of thread. If you just chain piece like she's doing here, it really saves a ton of thread, and it just makes your work a lot cleaner in the end.
Okay, and then this was from the first row. So I'm going to open that up, and I've got my lights here, so I know that those are the right pieces to sew back together.
Matching her corner, and you can see that at this point there's nothing to match on there, so she'll just do that. And oh, we need to push the button on the iron, Jen, so you can.
Oh, okay. I was going to finger press actually.
Yeah. Okay, so now she'll clip off her piece from her second row, put it there. Darks match darks.
So I've got my pieces organized right.
There was a question about flora and fauna, but I missed it, Nellie.
I'm answering now. Deb asked if flora and fauna will be available in the UK, and with the current situation with distribution and shipping, I'm going to follow up with her, but it should be.
Okay.
Are distributed internationally, right, Tony? Your patterns are sold internationally too, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to follow up, Deb, and we'll let you know. But I'm pretty sure that we just have to follow up with our distributor.
Okay, so Jen's going to point out once again what she's done.
Okay,
in
so
this
I've
first
sewed
step.
Each row together. Lights on the upper left, darks on the lower right. And now following the little direction arrows here.
Oh, wait, let me get close. Okay.
And this is how I'm going to press my block so that it goes back together and the seams will nest. So my favorite thing is to finger press. So I've got my thing open and I'm going to run my nail along here.
We love finger pressing at Wing and a Prayer.
So I'm putting all my seams going towards the top on this first row. This one, I'm going to put my seams going towards the bottom on the second row.
And you, of course, can take this to your iron and press.
And then this last one, I'm going to have my seams going up towards the top, using my fingernail there to.
Yep, when you're doing your finger pressing, you really want to use your nail. And you can see that there's Jen's seam. Oh, yep, there's Jen's seam.
And then this next one goes down.
Yep. So there's up and down. Okay.
Okay.
Now she's ready to sew a row together. So she's going to take that, go back, Jen, and just show, because if we have some beginners, it's always hard to know.
Okay.
So in order to be sure that you don't flip your rows, you always want to, keep your eye on a section, and then, so she's going to take her middle row and flip it over to her top row.
And I know I'm going to sew on this seam here.
Correct. So she knows she's going to sew on that seam here, because if she sewed on the outside seam, of course, her block would come together backwards. Like so she flipped it over. Now she's ready to sew. And the first time she has a seam to match here. And what we talked about nesting the seams, the reason they're pressed like that is so that one will go right up to the next, and she's just you're gonna finger pin that, right? So she's gonna hold it right into place. If you're a pinner, you would put a pin in there, but we finger pin. So I'm gonna follow Jen's fingers right to there. So see how this thumb, and see how her thumb is holding that seam that she nested into position. Now, after she gets it lined up to the machine, then she'll just move her hand to the top of that, holding it in place with her finger. See, and now she can still feel that it's all nested into place as it goes under the piece. Now she's going to go to her next seam. Let me go down. And she's going to do the same thing there. So we have a seam up, a seam down. She's matched it. It feels great. She's holding it with her fingers. And she's going to zip right up there holding it. And then once it gets close, she'll move her hand, hold it, see there with, ooh, how do I do that? That finger, there you go. Holding her seam still into place. So her fingers basically work as the pin. That's why it's called finger pinning.
Did you trademark that, Tony?
No, it's an old technique, but very few people use them. I will tell you that I sewed together this quilt up here, and I used 3 pins in the whole quilt. 3 pins.
Wow.
So
when
I teach,
doing it by feel with your finger,
I do it correct.
On the seam.
Yeah. So now Jen has what's called a lead because she needs to cut off this section. So instead of using the cutter and having a little 1-inch thread, even though we have a cutter on our machine, then she's just going to use that lead to start. And then you can see what she just cut off is clean. And she has, well, that was a tail that she just led. And here she's cutting her lead off. So we call these leads and tails. It's another thing that I teach when I'm doing my Tony's Timeless Travels, just to keep your work clean. Okay, so now Jen has section 1 and 2 of her block sewn together. She's ready to do number 3.
So this one
is a little tricky.
I've got, I don't have a seam to nest here.
Okay, let me get a good camera angle because this is very important.
Okay, but my seam at the 1/4 inch will line up.
Oh, wait. The
here
seam.
and here.
Hang on, I got to figure out. There we go.
Okay.
How about digging out one of Tony's pins? Let me show you where I keep my pins. I keep my few pins in the top of my machine.
The essentials, Tony.
The essentials, that's right, in case I need them.
So I'm going to line up it here at the top, and then my pen is going to go
in at the 1/4 inch mark. No, you probably have a dull pen. Do you?
I just
had
a bad angle.
You had a bad angle.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look here on this side and then you flip this over, you'll see that that's going to then match that seam. Okay, so now she is ready to take that.
And I probably will take out my pen.
And she'll probably take her pin out. Woo! She's zipping. No. So then let me show you. So she sewed through the lead. If somebody has not seen that before.
And I'm going to hold my finger where those are supposed to match again. That's still my favorite method other than the pen, because sometimes you'll hit the pen and it breaks your needle. Okay, so I've gotten to the seam. I'm going to go a little bit past, and then I'm going to nest these seams here at the end.
Yeah, so now we have nesting, which is a straight seam up and a straight seam down. So she's just going to hold that in place. Jen and I jokingly call each other the master and the grasshopper because Jen is the artist in the group and has done lots of applique and stuff, but not as much piecing as I've done in my 30-some years. So I've taught her lots of tricks over the time. And her son, that's now 18, came in one day and asked.
He said, "Mom, is Tony the teacher?"
So I guess that once you're the teacher, you're always the teacher. I don't know.
I think he was probably, what, 5 or 6?
Yeah. I think he came home from school. He was probably in kindergarten at the time. So he wanted to know if I was the teacher.
I guess he thought his mom wouldn't know as much as Tony.
There we go. Look at this beautiful block.
Wow.
Yay. So nice. Okay, so let me just point out a few things. So we would be pressing this block here, and you can see here how nice Jen's points match. If your points don't match that perfectly,
not 100%.
you know,
Here's
it's not, it's okay. It's okay, Nellie. This is a really fun quilt. Serendipity is very forgiving. So just practice, but work on it. Each block you do, try to get better at matching your seams. And then, so here is how then another block, she's got a second block done. So depending on the layout.
Looks like I picked the same.
So depending on the layout in the end, then we'll put all these blocks back together. So that is what everybody needs to get done. We tried to make this a little quicker and a little shorter today. So I guess if we had any quick questions and answers or I'm going to turn it back over to you, Nellie. Is there anything that you need us to review?
No, I think those blocks are beautiful. And what you're saying about the points not being perfectly matched, I mean, isn't the whole point of this quilt the serendipitous aspect of it is, you know, you can lay it out in different ways and the pattern
Yes.
and design sort of comes out at the end.
Here, right here.
So in the end, about perfection.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I said don't worry so much about the color combinations. Just make each block lights, darks, purples. Like you can see that this block has more purples in it that Jen did. This one has, you know, a little bit more of the teal colors in it with the purple. So eventually you're going to use every square you've cut. But if you drive yourself crazy with trying to, you know, do a block, the quilt won't be fun anymore. And so
and eventually you may get like 2 of the lights that are on the same, you know, in the same block. Like on these, I've used each one that I didn't have the same. But you may get to a point after you've gotten lower in your stacks that you have, you know, 2 of the same lights or 2 or 3 of the same darks. It's okay. In the end, it'll look beautiful.
Because when they come back together, they're going to come back together so that, you know, you've got more blocks that your lights are going to still touch each other. And so we'll review all of our layouts a little bit bigger next week and do that. So I believe that that's where they stop for this week, correct?
It is, yes.
Yes, but quick question, Tony. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
How do you press that seam when you put it back together and it's a larger block? Where do you press that seam in which direction?
So
on the diagonal.
It's not going to make any difference on that. I don't believe. So just Jen will look at that. So press this one. If you always press toward your, hang on, let me turn that around. Sorry. If you press toward your 3.5-inch section, you know, that'll just be a good habit to have. I don't know coming back together.
Yeah, I think that the best case scenario is you would press all of these seams probably open because it depends on the layout that you have to get it to go back together. But
the other thing is you may have to just hand change a seam as you're sewing it together depending on the layout. But we'll look into that a little bit and post a note on the website and Instagram for you about pressing. That's a great question.
Okay, great. Well, I really enjoyed seeing the block come together, and don't forget to hashtag your makes. We're gonna have a great giveaway. Tony, you're preparing a great giveaway, aren't you?
We are.
Is the giveaway a view? The view?
Yeah. That's our peaceful spot.
Very exciting. Okay, so thank you, ladies, for your time again and for social distancing and taking care and making sure that we all know how we're progressing through this project. And we will see everyone for the final video next Friday, April 24th.
Yes.
And in the meantime, you know, we're on social